You know when they talk about the cherry, she is the cherry.
So there was a story going around in the league that there's this girl that looks like a boy, that plays like a boy, but she's actually a girl. We still have players that work 9 to 5 jobs, and I take my hat off because I was one of them. What if you don't make the national team? What if you get an injury? Have you prepared for life after football?
But then you found another love.
Well, it wasn't another love.
It was always there.
It was always there.
No, coach, there was something you said. There was something you said. Someone borrowed you something.
I win 14-0, score a hat-trick on debut, come back, get a puncture, get back to work a day late, fired. We should be having a professional league, competing against the best in the world and able to show what we're capable of.
So they parked the bus, the train, the PRT, everything.
Double-decker,
everything. How is this player feeling right now in camp on the biggest stage, Kayleen, feeling like maybe the country's not behind her because she doesn't deserve to be there?
You can train hard and you can do your best, but is your best our best? You can say Mamelodi Sundowns are professional, but are they really professional? Corporates need to be ashamed of themselves, you know.
But behind the scenes, the women are struggling financially. What else do you want to achieve?
Defend the title.
The AFCON.
Back to back.
Welcome to another episode of Far More for the Fans podcast with me, Mbali Sigidi. So happy to be in your company once again. Of course, this is a podcast that brings football lovers even closer and closer to the game that you love so much. Well, speaking about the game you love so much, we have an incredible guest today, because when we talk about football royalty, this is it. There's nothing beyond this. When we talk about the top of women's football, the pyramid, she's like right there. You know when they talk about the cherry, she is the cherry. From Salt River all the way to being very instrumental, the mastermind in the meteoric rise of Banyana Banyana. Who am I talking about? Of course, Coach Desiree Ellis. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for the kind words and that introduction.
I mean, you are the cherry though, Coach. Because one, you are the rose amongst the thorns in the industry. But I mean, when you talk about, yes, the pyramid, you are right there, Coach, because I think you've earned your stripes. Am I wrong?
Well, there's still more stripes to earn. There's still more stripes to earn, yeah.
But does this ever get tiring? Does it get old?
Not really. If you love what you do, I think that's the most important thing. It's not just a job for me. It's something that I love doing. I like working with people. I like seeing them achieve. I like seeing them, get better. So it's something that I enjoy doing. It's hard work though, but when you see these players get contracts, when you see them get a degree, even though that's not part of the team, but what they do, because football is a big landscape now. When I was playing back in the day, maybe 99% were unemployed. 3 of us that had jobs. Now when you look at the national team, there's 99.9% that have not 1, 2, currently still studying, 3 degrees. So it has changed tremendously. So when you see those type of things, and it just warms your heart, because you feel that you've made a difference.
Let's go back. 1978.
It's a long time.
That time people are fighting for freedom. South Africa's transitioning. I don't even think there's women's national team. I don't even think anyone's thinking about just women's football at all. I've never even heard of a town called Salt River. Take us back to 1978, Salt River.
Well, that's where it started for me as a girl growing up with boys playing football. Not only football, we played marbles, we played cricket, we played rugby, and all the sports you can think of, because even though we lived in Heiderveld, then moved to Hanover Park, I went to school in Salt River. So from Monday to Friday, during my primary school years, during my high school years, was spent in Salt River, playing sport with the boys. So not in my wildest imagination would I have thought it would end like it did, or gone a little bit further. But I ended up playing with boys, and then one day I got approached to come and join the girls team, and I was just as ignorant back then, saying, girls, I never heard of girls playing football. So I went down, actually a strange story, I went down to one of their meetings, flat-chested, very tiny, very short hair, and I rock up there and they say, who's this boy?
Ah.
and I leave, and they come to my house, and then I join the team. So on my first game, I play for the team, and my dad, who's like really loud and vocal, screaming like mad on the side, and people are saying, "Nah, that can't be a girl. It's a boy. Girls don't play like that." I even had to pull down my pants, to show them that I'm a girl. Did
your dad recognize you? That is you playing?
Of course, man. Of course. So there was a story going around in the league that there's this girl that looks like a boy, that plays like a boy, but she's actually a girl. So that was the only time I ever pulled down my pants for people to see that I'm really a girl.
So when do you join your dad's team?
What happened was that the year after I joined Athlone Celtic, the coach and the owners all leave. And because my dad had been and my family had been regularly at games, dressing up and all of that, my mom and my dad decided to take over the team. So now I have 3 sisters. They're all forced to play.
Wow.
They're all forced to play. My younger sister, when the ball would kick her, she would go, ah. But my sister, who now currently lives in Australia, was a top midfielder.
Sure.
She was a top midfielder, made provincials with me as well.
Coach, I'm thinking right now, if we were to make girls pull down their pants right now, in this lens.
It'd be serious trouble.
Yo, I mean, wasn't that a bit, how was it personally for you though, having to prove that? I mean, also as a woman, how did you feel? Did it make you feel something?
I mean, the same as mental health, back in the day, we didn't know of those things.
Yeah.
We didn't know whether it was right or wrong. We were just trying to prove that, that I'm a girl. And wherever I went, they said, but why do you want to play football? Do you want to be a boy? I never wanted to be a boy. I just wanted to play the game that I loved, and I had the support of, what mattered most is that I had the support of my parents. So if the teacher at school told me that I wanted to be a boy, if the neighbor told me that I wanted to be a boy, it didn't really matter because my parents supported me wholeheartedly on that. Maybe my dad wanted a boy, I don't know.
So he didn't want you to be a doctor, lawyer?
In actual fact, I wanted to be a lawyer.
Oh.
But I never got there.
So you didn't even bother studying?
No, we couldn't afford it. My sister actually studied and she got a bursary, but we couldn't afford it.
Sure. But then you found another love?
Well, it wasn't another love.
It was always there?
It was always there.
But it sort of took over the love of the lawyer in you. Because I think when you also realize that you're very good at it and you can actually go quite far with it, I'm sure that love sort of surpasses the other one in your heart.
You know what? I just wanted to be on the field to play. That's all. If I could be on the field to play, whether it was in the street, after school with the boys, or whether I'd go with my uncle to a game and I'd take my little bag with me, hoping that they short and I could fill in. And I would sometimes play against guys and they wouldn't know that I'm a girl. Like I said, because short hair, flat chested, tiny. All I wanted to do was play. That's the only thing I wanted to do.
Coach,
played with my school shoes. My dad would come. We worked in Cape Town and we lived in Salter, which isn't far.
Yeah.
So we'd come during lunchtimes and then we would say, oh, she's playing with the school shoes, let me take it off.
I'm curious now, when did your puberty kick in?
Very early. Very early.
Okay, but you got into the national team quite late.
Yes.
I mean, it's unprecedented now. But what was different then? Because you got in there like 30.
30, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's different now, because I think if you're good enough, you're old enough. Nelson Mandela was released. We got opportunity to try it for the national team, and I was working in a meat market back then, and I said, this is one opportunity that I can't miss, because that is something that I've dreamed of for a very, very long time. So we get in this minibus and we're on our way to Johannesburg. I make the team as the vice captain, play against Swaziland, which is now Eswatini. Win 14-0, score a hat-trick on debut. Come back, get a puncture, get back to work a day late, fired.
How?
They said I absconded.
Wait, coach, wait. You just got a hat-trick, then you're fired.
They said I absconded. I came back a day late than anticipated because we got a puncture. Nowadays we don't travel by minibus, right? Nowadays we fly wherever we need to go.
So you fired from the fish market, from the
storeroom. Like I worked in a butcher, and I worked in the storeroom. So I got fired. Even the late Kerry Choma, who was then involved in women's football, went to speak to them, and they were not interested.
But something tells me you were not sad.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't sad. Look, I was living my dream. I won't say I didn't care, but I was living my dream. So for 3 years, I had no work, doing odd jobs here and there. I even did the door-to-door stuff. You know, those trying to sell things to people. I even did those stuff back in the day, door-to-door. So I would do anything that would bring in some money until I got a job at Kick-Off magazine.
But going back to that landscape, the Banyana landscape, because I don't think people realize that there was no national team. It started with you guys.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, can you sort of like paint the picture and explain what exactly was happening? Because you spoke about the transition of Mandela, but explain how they actually put the whole team together, because there was no team, and where they got all the players from.
So we had interprovincials on a regular basis, you know. I remember playing against Fikile Sotoli and them, and they just come back from Sweden with their team, Soweto Ladies back in the day, because that was the benchmark, Soweto Ladies. So I had these competitions. It was Sanlam, it was Alala Cup and all of that. So we had all of those competitions. And then from there, they sponsored the ACON, that the first one was held in South Africa in 2000. But we then got together, so all of us were called together, like the different factions, for the lack of a better word. We all came together for trials to select the first national team. And I remember Terry Payne was the coach, and we ran so much. I said, one day when I coach, I don't want players to run like that. We ran so much, but back in the day, because of the English background, probably that's what they did it back in the day, because the game has evolved. You don't just run anymore, you do a lot of football fitness stuff. So we had these trials, and I got selected as the vice captain. So the first game was against Eswatini. And I remember the night before, we were just sitting having dinner, and this one lady walks in and she says, "Where's the national team of South Africa?" And Kabu Zita says, "You're looking at us." And she goes like, "Oh, okay." And Kabu says, "Watch tomorrow." And then we beat them 14-0.
Hey.
So that's how it all started. We didn't play as often as they do now. We would only play if there's a competition. We would only play if there's they called it ACON back then, now it's called WAFCON. We'd only play every second year or so. Or if there's a COSAFA Cup like it was in 2002. So that's the only times we would really come together to play, or if there's a qualifier for World Cup. And back in the day it was different. You'd play home and away. And I remember us playing Nigeria. We got thrashed so badly.
What was the score?
It wasn't
14.
No way. It was 4-1 in Nigeria. And we thought when we come back home, the comforts of home and everything, they beat us 7-1. But they were a formidable team.
Yeah.
The Kiddies, Florence Omakbemis, those are top players. As
it's always been, even now, a formidable foe, as it's always been, because it just seems like that Nigerian pedigree just also carried on into this one. But now you're in Banyana.
Okay.
Now the journey as a player begins for you. Let's unpack that.
So I eventually got a job at Touchline. I worked in the photo agency. So I would take unpaid leave whenever I would go to camp, because after the first camp I had no leave. So I would take unpaid leave, and then we'd meet up to play. And it was, I think, the best time to us, because those players that we played with and against at times became our biggest friends, lifelong friends. So we would meet up, and before we would meet up, we would text each other, how's the training going, and we'd try to help each other before we come to camp. And then the biggest thing was, then ACON comes, and it's in South Africa in 2000. And now we're saying to the players, listen, this is where we can market ourselves. This is where we can raise the level of the profile of women's football. Then Sanlam comes along and they sponsor that competition. And then everybody at SAFA comes and they tell us how important it is. But we know how important it is, because it's not just about Banyana, it's about women's football now. And I think from there, it just sprung up. Because you only had your competition in your province, which is your league. And then you had the interprovincials, and then you had the national team. If you look back then to now, there's so many competitions being run now, and so many competitions you can play in. But I think that was the start. I remember Vosloorus was packed out. People were sitting on top of the roofs. People were sitting on the pylons all over supporting the national team. And unfortunately, we didn't win it. We lost to Nigeria again. But I think that was the start of women's football, because then you had the Sanlam League, all around the country, which sprung up all around the country after that. And that, I think, was the start of women's football.
Do you think at that moment people understood the seriousness of women's football at that time?
Look, I remember going to a club match and taking a taxi, like everybody else does, taking a taxi to training, taking a taxi to a game. And as I was walking from the taxi to the field, because we had played that weekend, these two guys were walking behind. But they were not aware that I was going, because I had no tracksuit, no nothing on. I was dressed like jeans and whatever, going to the soccer field. And they were passing comments like, "You've got nothing to do, let's go to this game and have a laugh." And knowing me, I turned around and said, "So you think women's football is funny? Come have a look, maybe you'll change." They became our biggest supporters because they hadn't realized that women's football was at that level. They thought we were just playing for fun.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say, I turned around and I...
No, I didn't. I just gave him that look and I said, "Come and have a look and see, and maybe you'll change your mind." But I think, like I said, 2000 is when everybody that was everybody, wanted to see women's football. And they truly saw what women's football was all about. And I think that's where the fans came along in their numbers. And from then on, it got better and better with the fans, even though we didn't play as much then. And then obviously after that was Olympics and all of that, and we didn't play a lot before that, but the fans still came out in their numbers, and that was the rise of the fans following women's football.
You were playing with Gloria and them, hey?
Yes.
Yeah. Who are your other teammates? You with Vera?
Kabuzita, Veronica Pewa later on, Joanne Solomon's probably for me one of the best strikers we've ever had. We could give Joanne the ball and we just stand and watch, and she'd go score and she'd turn around, but you're not helping me. Ball is in the back of the net, Fikili Sotole, Sibongeli Khumalo, like really, really top players, players.
But now you think about the issues behind the scenes, because you've got a women's national team that's now, you're garnering all this support now, people sitting on top of each other. But behind the scenes, the women are struggling financially. These players have to have 2 or 3 jobs. They've got families. Others don't even want to go to varsity. They're seeing this as, this is my way out of poverty. But when the curtain is unveiled, there's actually a very big problem behind the scenes.
Look, when we came back from the 2019 World Cup, we said we need a professional league. When we went to the 2023 World Cup, we've shown what we're capable of. I just think people cannot imagine if there was a professional league. We still have players that work 9 to 5 jobs, and I take my hat off because I was one of them that would then go to training in the evening, because your club would train in the evening because there's players working, and still being able to do what you do. I think corporates need to come on board. I think, I'm going to use a very strong word, corporates need to be ashamed of themselves. They all say women's football. And I'm not sure what the reason is, but I suppose bums on the seats, I suppose packed stadiums, because that is what sponsorship was all about. But you have a product here that has proven over and over again that they can, go toe-to-toe with the best in the world without having a professional league, without having similar structures to what professional structures are all about. You can say Mamelodi Sundowns are professional, but are they really professional? For a lack of a better word. Yes, they train every day, probably different to what other players train, but are they really professional? Yes, they're attached to professional teams, so probably their environment and everything that they do is of a higher standard and a more professional standard than most clubs. But just looking back, even though you're not professional, you run your club as a professional setup, because that's the only way you can compete. But can you imagine if we had a professional setup? You'd get up in the morning, you'd go to training, everything you do, your life is football.
You eat, sleep football.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Now, what many players has done, university football has come on board. I think that has sort of bridged the gap. Because there used to be a university national team, and used to have players in Banyana and in the university national team, because they used to play international competition, get experience, and then bring that back, and vice versa. So you used to have that. And back in the day when I was playing, players were unemployed. They looked forward to that little money that you would get for camp, and they would go shopping, and they'd take pictures with everybody in the same uniform, and I would just look at them and think, I can't spend my money. I've got unpaid leave. I've got something to pay. I have to, keep that money. But nowadays, you have players that have degrees, players that are preparing for life after football. And I have these conversations with all the young players who come into the team, and when they need to write matric, I say, okay, that's it, you're not coming to camp. No, but I can, not on my watch. If it's the last thing you do is to finish your matric, because that is the next step for you in. So that's what players are doing nowadays to fall back on, because we read too many stories, you know, of former players in the backyard, former players texting you for airtime, you know.
Sure.
So I think we need to learn from that, and we can't say that we not financially literate. You know, we can see those stories happening. We can read about those stories happening. Those are learnings that you take to be better. And I asked them, you know, what did you do with your money? Not that I want the money, but what did you do with your money? I want to see the picture. I want to see that you've done something with your money, because when you leave this national team, what have you got to show for it? You come with a new watch, you come with a new pair of tackies. It's fine to spoil yourself. But what if you don't make the national team? What if you get an injury? Have you prepared for life after football? So that is some of the things we preach. And with Coach Tina being with the national team and coming from a university background, that's what we preach. That's what we preach about, making sure that there's life after football, because many of the players will have what? Medals and trophies. And they have to find a job in retail, like some of the ex-players have done, men's players have done, doing jobs that they wouldn't have thought of doing in their lifetime.
Do you think, and you touch on something very, very key, because unfortunately in your time, we understand that it was starting, right? It was, someone had to lay the groundwork. But now we fast forward, it's 2025. There's so much more. Do you feel like now the newer players are spoiled for choice, in a sense that there's far more competitions? There's USA, there's the Hollywoodbets Super League, there's Sasol, there's COSAFA, there's so many, there's varsity, there's so many competitions where you're spoiled for choice, where you can, your match fitness shouldn't be put into question because you are playing regularly, right? You're spoiled for choice. Now there are sponsors who've come on board to sort of come and support as well. Women's football has never been even bigger than it is right now. But do you find that the mentality has changed from the younger generation as opposed to the ones in your time? Do you feel like they were more hungrier in your time?
Look, I don't think it's about just that. Each and every generation that comes along, they have to create opportunities for the next generation to come. Each and every generation that comes along fights a fight for the next one not to fight a fight. But they fight different fights to make it better for the next. So when you look at our generation and you look at the next generation that came, they were better off. They played more matches. Well, compared to what? I played 10 years. I've got 32 caps. I mean, we almost play that amount of games in 1 year nowadays. So the next generation comes along and they make things better so that the other generation, I mean, we used to get borrowed clothes. You know, Jersey used to sit here. We once traveled with, some had red tracksuits, some had blue tracksuits, some had pink tracksuits that we got from Edgar's. Now you look at it, there's a clothing list that go out, what you wear today, what you wear tomorrow. So things get better, but it's still not where we want to be. You know, the league's improved, but it's not where we want to be. But it's a step in the right direction. But for me, it's taking too long. Maybe not in my lifetime, but it's taking too long, because we should be having a professional league competing against the best in the world and able to show what we're capable of. You should be getting paid for what you love doing. It's not just a job, but it's, I'm doing this, but I'm actually getting paid for it. And how amazing is that? But now you're having to maybe miss a weekend game because your team is traveling and you can't get off at work, or you have to miss a midweek game and your team is traveling because you can't get. So there's still a lot of challenges. But because it's not just football anymore, it's netball, it's cricket. You know, all of these sports that females can now go into. And these other sports are successful. Cricket is, netball is, women's rugby is successful. So there's more opportunities for that as well. And then you have the players that are not so serious about the sport, but they use that to get a bursary. So they play maybe just for the varsity team, or they maybe just play for the USA club side, and they don't have ambition to maybe go higher. But then you also have, besides that, You have universities abroad that are now, getting hold of our players and wanting them to get a bursary abroad. Like Shakira O'Malley's in the US. We've had many players. Jermaine studied in the US. Amu studied in the US. Kaylin studied in the US. Nomvula. So we've had many players go to the US. But then through that, we've also had players play at very big clubs in the world. AC Milan, Atletico Madrid, etc. We've had players play there. So I can't say that the mentality is not there. I can't say that the mentality is different. But I always say they don't make them like they used to.
That's what I wanted to get to, Coach.
They don't make them like they used to. I think maybe back in the day we were a bit stronger. Maybe back in the day, nowadays they pick up an injury, and they come off the field, somebody stepped on their foot. Back in the day you would just shake it off and carry on. But things change, things evolve, science comes into being. You have now physios. Back in the day we didn't have a physio when we played for our club side. It would just be go home, put the ice on or whatever, and then be ready for the next training session. So things change, the game evolves, science plays a more part now. We don't run around the fields like we used to anymore, make 10 laps around the field. We don't do that anymore. So you've got to change with the time, you've got to evolve with the way the game changes, otherwise you get left behind.
As a player, when was your first international trip?
My first international trip was to Zambia, I think it was. Either Zambia or Zimbabwe back in the day. I think it was 1993, 1994. In actual fact, we played Swaziland, 1993. Then we played, I've been to Zambia. I've been to Zimbabwe. I went to Angola. I went to Nigeria. So I've been to a few countries back in the day when I was playing.
And overseas? There was that US trip you were telling me about.
We went in 1998. We went to play a lot of college teams, and the standard was so high, we got beaten every game. We went with the Castle Palacios. And while we were in our beanies and our jackets, these kids were walking around in their short sleeve because we went to Utah and it was like winter. But it was good to see, because you read about that and you see it on TV and you hear about how strong college football is in the US, and that time it was really strong. We got beat badly by some college teams.
What's badly?
To get us like 5-0 and 4-0 and that. We got beaten getting ready for the 1998 Icon, like they called it back then.
It's still better than the 14-0.
Yeah, it is.
Was that the trip where you lost your luggage?
Yes, that was the trip that I lost my luggage. So I land in the US and my luggage is not there. So the clothes that I'm wearing is the only clothes I have. With my boots, of course. My boots never went into the bag because I could get training kit from someone, and obviously playing kit is there. But if I didn't have my boots, then I had one of the smallest feet back then. Wearing a pair of Jomo Sono size 4s with the inner sole with 2 pairs of socks to make it fit you back in the day to get a decent boot. So my luggage was lost. When I arrived, it never left South Africa. But I was fortunate that I got $200, so I didn't think about buying the necessities. I just spent it on whatever I needed to spend.
No, Coach, there was something you said. Someone borrowed you something.
I had to borrow underwear from one of the players. Let's not go into that story.
Male underwear. Coach Mufagi Tranka, Coach. That's what it was.
You're letting the secrets out of the bag now, eh?
Okay, Coach. Okay. So, what would you say as a player, in the 10 years you played in Banyana Banyana, what would you say was one of those standout moments, your highlights? Just to summarize your days as a player first before you transition into coaching.
I think it has to be the 2002 COSAFA Cup. It's the first ever major competition we go to, having not qualified for the World Cup, obviously, leading up to that. So we go to Zimbabwe. We had some big scores there, 13-0, 14-0. I think the one game, Veronica Pewa scored 8 goals in the one game. And then we get to the final. And I remember Neil Tovey was with us as well. And we were warming up in the parking lot because there was a 3rd and 4th place game before that and we couldn't use the field. And I remember the one thing he said to us was, you see that crowd out there, they're going to be with the team all the time. But you need to turn the crowd against the team. So you just stop them from playing. We had Coach Shakes Mashaba there. We had Fran Hilton-Smith there. And that's exactly what we did, and we won that game 2-1. So the current coach, or the coach I played against in 2017, Sita Lilwa, was a player in that match as well. And we beat them 2-1. That was our first trophy ever for Banyana. It's the 2002 COSAFA Cup.
And we're still still the most successful team in COSAFA. And then 2002 happens. What happens in 2002?
So I get back from the COSAFA Cup. I'd picked up a foot injury, and there was going to be an interprovincials again to select the squad, and I wasn't going. But then Fran called and said, listen, we have a new coach, you have to come. And I said, well, I'll come. I have a sore foot, but I'll come. And the coach obviously used me sparingly, but only in the big games. And unfortunately, I got dropped from the team, and that was it for me for Banyana.
And that became your retirement?
Yes, from international football, because I knew as one of the older players in the team, I was not going to get a call back again. I could see where he's going. Yes, it was like every other player. When you get dropped, you're angry, you're disappointed, you felt you could have still done something for the team, because at the end of the year was another ACON leading up to a qualifier for the World Cup. So we were like a few months away. And at the time, you're just angry and thinking, you know, why now, why? But like every coach, they have to refresh. If you think back now, they have to refresh. And I mean, I've spoken to the coach a few times. There's no hard feelings. But at the time, you're really angry. And I just concentrated on my club football until I stopped playing club football.
I wanted to come back to that, because now that you're a coach, you understand our both dynamics.
Oh, yes.
Now looking back, do you think you could have handled that
Probably.
a lot
Probably,
better?
yes.
Because you could have gotten even more mileage.
I probably would not have gotten a call-up again. I was one of the older players. I was 39. I was one of the older players in the national team. And I could see where he was going, but I just felt that I'd worked so hard, and I just felt the way it was done could have been done better. So in that way, because one of the things was that I didn't play regularly, but nobody came and asked why I didn't play regularly, because the coach had decided how he was going to use me because of my injury. So nobody came to find that out. They just assumed certain things, and for that I was a bit angry and disappointed that they didn't find those things out. So, but looking back, obviously coaches do things differently, and there's a time for players to move on. And sometimes we don't see it, but coaches see it, and it's hard to take. But eventually, you can't play forever, and it's for a player. I think it's the hardest to take, but they don't know the emotions the coaches go through when they have to tell a player that you didn't make it. I think that is probably one of the most difficult things for me, to drop a player, because I'm actually telling you that the thing that you dreamt of the most is now being put on pause.
Because now in 2002 you don't get the call up you want, but you get it much later, 2016, a much bigger responsibility. I don't even think you thought that you were even maybe in Safa's mind to coach the national team, considering what had happened to you back in 2002. And yet there was always this bigger plan, and you really took on that burden.
Look, you want to play as long as you can, right? And I don't think anybody can play as long as they think they can. And there's always something else. So Fran had a plan already, because one of the camps that I got injured, she sent me back to Cape Town to do an introductory course. It was still held at the University of the Western Cape, or Skrita. She sent me back there to do that coaching course, and that was 1998. In 2014, I do a CAF B license, in 2015 a CAF A license. And Vera comes into the country. Don't know her from a bar of soap, but I was working for SABC at the time, and she had these coaches, and she would ask us what our licenses were. And then she called me one side and asked me, and I said I got a CAF B, and she said she needed somebody more experienced, and I said it's okay. So we help her with the training. We're still at the Pretoria at the High Performance Center. And I do a game that night. It was a CAF match, and I think SuperSport was playing. And during halftime, I get a call. Can I take this call? And I said, just give me, then we're going to have halftime now, and we'll chat. And then she said she wants me to be the assistant for the first game, which was against Zimbabwe, I think it was, or Ghana, I forget, but one of those two teams. And then I go with her, and the rest is history. I was an assistant until she left in 2016. After the Tokyo, after the Olympic Games in Rio. And then I get appointed as the acting coach in 2016.
Let's talk about the Olympics, because it's
yeah.
You have a love-hate relationship with the Olympics.
A more hate than love.
Let's talk about the hate. Yeah, the hate portion, because
having been to the Olympics as an assistant coach and having seen how big the tournament is, and maybe not on the scale of the World Cup, because that is something else. Then we go to the World Cup in 2019, and immediately afterwards we play Botswana. Oh my word. I still have those clips when I look at them and I'm thinking, how did we lose this game?
They parked the bus.
How did we lose this game? I mean, the minute you think we'd scored, it hit the post. The minute you think we'd scored, somebody would be there. It was a game where the whole game, they had one chance in the whole game. It was a game where we played the game in their half. The whole game, extra time, and then we lost on penalties, and we all just stood and we looked at each other.
So they parked the bus, the train, the BRT, everything.
Double-decker,
everything.
All I said to the players was, we have to stand together now, because there's no blame game here, right? We lost as a team, we win as a team, we lost as a team. You got to have each other's backs now, because you could be slaughtered in the media. You got to stand up for each other. But for me, it was like, for a whole week, I was just sitting at home thinking, what could I have done? And when I look at the footage, there was nothing. There was nothing. It was one-way traffic. If we had scored, we probably would have won 10-0. So that was a very, very sad moment, from a high of the World Cup to a low of the Olympics in Tokyo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we didn't make the next Olympics either.
Yeah.
So that was tough, but we had really pushed, because we knew if you get to the final round, you actually have a chance. And then unfortunately, we came up against our nemesis Nigeria, and they won the match.
I mean, when you also think back at that 2018 WAFCON final.
Yeah.
I remember I was in Uruguay at the Under-17 Women's World Cup with Coach Shoti. And I was watching this final, and it was the penalties. And I was on the edge of my seat.
You know, it was a very difficult game, in the sense that we had Nora Filwejani. She had to go back to a club, right? We had Leandra, who we knew was probably going to give one of our kickers if it goes into a penalty shootout. But unfortunately, she'd picked up an injury in the previous game. And we tried to push as much as we could. By 68, Leandra was done. And then we go into the penalty shootout. And we lose that penalty shootout. But the proudest thing was that Nigeria has always beaten us. And in the very first game of the tournament, we beat them. You know, so we knew what we were capable of. And we probably played the best football in the whole tournament. The best football.
And beat them convincingly.
Yes, and we didn't win it. So fast forward, no WAFCON in 2020, which was hugely disappointing, because all the boys' tournaments had gone ahead, but the women's tournament was completely cancelled. And that was sad, because they had changed the format, because now instead of 8 countries, it was now 12 countries. So that would have been a real tester for us, with the 2022 being another World Cup qualifying tournament. So I went onto the internet and I searched the men's tournament, and I saw how the format, I worked at the format, how it ran, who played who, etc. So you had a country that ended third, that actually won the competition. So I said to the team, we've got to win our first game. If we win our first game, we can manage the rest of because it was also just coming out of COVID slowly, so we had to manage things like really, really well. And we had a really bad build-up. We played Zambia 2 weeks into preseason, lost 3-0, but we needed the game. We hadn't started football, but they were almost at the end of the season, because we were playing Algeria, in a qualifier, final one. And they had a team that was playing in season. Most of their team played in France, and they were playing in season. So we beat them at home, and we drew away, and we qualified. Then 6 weeks down the line, we still haven't started playing. And now we get this friendly against the Netherlands. I say I'm taking it, because that's probably the only game we're going to get. And we traveled to the Netherlands. Jermaine can't travel. Few players can't travel. And we played the Netherlands. I remember Filwejani wasn't there either. Jermaine wasn't able to travel. A few players really couldn't make it. And we 3-1 down, and we get a penalty and we miss. And Tembi gets 1-on-1 and we miss. And 20 minutes later, it's 5-1. because the latter part of the game we were going to struggle because of lack of match fitness. Then a couple of months down the line, we still haven't played any more friendlies, and now we're getting ready for WAFCON. So I decided we're going to do this differently now. So we call in the senior players and we say, what is your ambition? Because we've got to be aligned, right? So Jermaine says we want to win it. I said, but we have to qualify for the World Cup first. She said, if we win it, we qualify. Janine says, we have a lot of experience here. I said, experience will only matter if it adds value. If it doesn't add value anymore, it's just a word of experience. So I said, maybe 1, 2, 3 of you don't make it, and that's reality, you know. So, okay, we're on the same page. I remember Coach Cameron saying we've got to give hope. I remember Coach Tina saying, you know, we've got to buy into this. So we keep it in-house of what we want to achieve, but out there's game by game, day by day. So anyway, we go to Morocco and we start preparing there. And while everybody's playing around us, we have no friendlies. But we just focused on this thing. Our focus is just that first game against Nigeria. We got to win that game to get a better draw in the quarterfinal. And we win that game and we completely outplayed them. I think it was one of the best games that we played in a long while. And we all excited and celebrate. We celebrated after every game. So the next game, we're now playing Burundi. So we changed the team slightly because during COVID, we know what's happening, and we changed the team slightly, and we struggled in the first half. We win that game. Then before the Botswana game, COVID hits us. So some of our players are not available because they're also sharing. So if I test positive and you're sharing, you also can't play. So we have a very small squad at training, but probably the best training session, because I remind them why they were chosen for every eventuality. And this is one of those eventualities. And we play Botswana and Thembi gets injured. And I can feel the mood from going onto social media. I can feel the mood in the country. I can feel everybody's just down. Everybody don't think we're going to do this. But we have a plan because we've got Hilda, we've got Jermaine who can step up. And Jermaine, who hadn't played for 2 years because she had visa issues, she couldn't get out of a country, Jermaine steps up, Hilda steps up. And, you know, we play in the quarterfinals and we win, and Thembi's there, and we say we will do our best to get her to the World Cup because she then has a chance, and Thembi's there celebrating on her crutches, and then Thembi leaves, and then we play Zambia, and we win that game. And we didn't play well in that game. For some reason, we struggled to get going, we struggled to connect, but the quality that we had, it stood in the end. Yeah. And now we're playing Morocco. So now, all of a sudden, we get shifted away from where we were training. We're training on a pitch that doesn't have markings, the sprinklers are coming up, but we just stay focused, and Dr. Dodan raises his voice and they take us back to the field where we're training, because we knew now we're playing the home country. And we get all these messages, and I'm even on a WhatsApp group with the president because now he's calling us, and we have the phone, and we put it down there, and he's wishing us well for the final and all of that. After that, I'm just taken off that WhatsApp group. All of a sudden, I can't even connect with anyone. But anyway, so on that day, the president comes there, you know, and wants to meet the players. He comes there with Jessica, and when they walk in, they're coming in with a beatbox, and I almost didn't want to have a team meeting because the mood was just something else. This team was ready. Nothing was going to stand in their way. And we get to the stadium and we see everybody walking. The stadium is packed, and the noise, and all they go out with a pitchfork, singing and dancing. I'm telling you, the lasers was not going to bother us, not at all. Whatever they threw at us was not going to bother us.
It was your day.
It was our day. We play well, we score 2 great goals, and then we concede, and then the board goes up 9 minutes, and I'm like, guys, where did this come from? And every minute, I promise you, every minute, I would turn around to the back and say, Coach T, how many minutes? And she'd go, 8. How many minutes? 7. Until the end, and it was chaos. They threw a bib off. I don't know why. People were praying, people were crying. It was just really meant to be. It was meant to be, of the way we played and how we were connected and how we fought for each other. You know, especially in the midfield. We'd say, where's Kolosa going? Then they would say, no, but we're covering for her.
Yeah.
You know, we were covering for her, and the way they encouraged each other, the way they pushed that last minutes. And afterwards, Linda said, Coach, if I was going to extra time, I was done. I was done.
Yeah, for Linda to say that.
The celebration, we knew, you know, we got so many messages. We knew how important it was. I remember Amanda Dlamini saying to me, Coach, this is personal. Yeah. And I knew where she's coming from. Because we've all tried. 5 times we got to the final. And we all tried. And I remember her sitting in the stand, and when we won, I was pointing to her like, this is for you, you know, this is for you. And for everybody that sacrificed. But I don't think we realized how big it was until we got to our tumble.
Yeah.
I don't think we knew what we did was big. But I don't think we realized. We never slept that night. We had the trophy there. And we kept looking at it with the medals around us. And Cameron kept saying, pinch me, you know.
Yeah.
And on the way when we were traveling back, Bambanani would just wake us up when we doze. African champions don't sleep. And then we just wide awake until she moves away again. But this probably was the most connected that we've been. And I think when we look back, it was bigger than us. Much bigger than we could ever imagine.
Coach, I must, you know, because, you know, you're talking about your journey with your players, just the growth and the ascendancy of this Banyana Banyana team. But, you know, sometimes as a coach, apart from just the successes, you deal with a lot of lows as well.
Oh, yeah.
You deal with a lot of players as well. The reality is that every national team player wants to get caps, wants to get 100 caps, wants to get 150 caps. And, of course, there was the big stories of Janine getting, you know, the big caps, Mpumi getting the all-important cap, and why she didn't get the all-important cap.
It's a long story. You know, we wanted to give it to her sooner, but due to certain things, you know, I just felt that as players and coaches, we have relationships, you know, and from my side, the relationship was always good. But sometimes, you know, when you're not playing, as a player, the relationship is not so good. And I just felt that, you know, it wasn't the right time because we wanted to give it to her. She reached out last year and explained that, you know, how important it was to her. And I explained my situation to her as well on why. And that's a personal conversation between me and Mpumi. But I explained the reason why, that it was always there. But there were certain reasons and she understood. And for a player to get the 150th cap is big. It's big. For a player that has done so much, it is big. And we couldn't do it last year because we had qualifiers and then played out the country. And I didn't want a similar situation where we're playing a qualifier and we meant to give a player a cap, but we also want to win the game, like what happened with Janine. So I said to her that we will give it to her. And then we had the conversation now to say this is probably the only time because after WAFCON, it's a qualifier again, you know, and that's how it came about.
Yeah. Do you feel that sometimes as players, they sort of cut their nose to spite their face?
Not really. Not really. I won't put it that way. You know, as a player, you know what you're capable of. You know, as a player, what you've got to offer. But sometimes your good is maybe not our good. Sometimes we need a little bit more. And sometimes players go back and they come back and they give you more.
Is this a matter of being honest with yourself?
I think so, more than anything. Like I explained my situation, I also felt that I could have played. But if I look back, coach had made the right decision. You wanted to move on. You wanted a more vibrant squad. You wanted younger players, you know, with lots more energy. And that's why we always try to look at, you know, youth and experience, because we have a lot of experience in our team. But we also have a lot of good young players coming in now. How do those young players get an opportunity to grow if you don't give them the opportunity to grow? So sometimes we as coaches have to make the difficult decisions. And sometimes it's not the decisions what the players think. And it's not as easy as what the players think it is, because you agonize for weeks and weeks and weeks on how maybe here, you know, maybe there, maybe here. But sometimes it's just not possible because you have these young players coming through and they are blowing you away. So how do you stop that growth? How do you stop that development? Because you look at Karabo and you look at Sibuleli, who went to Coach Shorty in Uruguay in 2018. In 2019, they were at the Senior World Cup. Where would they be now if we did not take them? So it's difficult situations for the coach, probably for the player as well, because they see themselves still playing a couple of years. But if you have these honest conversations and they understand, and I think the relationship that we have with players is really important, and they're able to understand. I mean, I dropped Kaylin after the World Cup when we played, not after the World Cup, after WAFCON. But if I didn't probably do it at that time, would she have maybe gone to the World Cup?
I want to come to that.
Maybe not. Maybe not. You know, but like we say, if we don't have the relationship that we have, because we can also think it's personal. Because we do think it's personal. We sometimes say the coach don't like me. We sometimes say the coach has favorites. We sometimes say all of those things. But if we're really honest and we look at ourselves and we say, am I better than Mbali? Am I giving the coach what she's asking for? Am I able to stay at that level? Because you can train hard and you can do your best, but is your best our best?
You know, you're speaking about, as a coach, you make difficult decisions, right? There was that issue with Mpumi and that 150th cap. But at the same time, you just won WAFCON. You are now on the biggest stage at the FIFA World Cup. And then there's this big controversy with the goalkeepers. And it's another decision as a coach, a difficult decision, but at the same time, you're on this stage where the world is watching, where now you can't allow everything around, remove the focus from what is happening. But my question is really about, you know, for us here at home, and you go on Twitter or X now, and you see just the things that were being said. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, how is this player feeling right now in camp, on the biggest stage, Kaylin, feeling like maybe the country's not behind her because she doesn't deserve to be there? And your role as a coach to sort of validate her, saying, you are good enough to be here.
I never validate. My stuff is based on what is good for the team always. There's never a justification or there's never a validation. It's never about that. Whatever decision I make is based on football. Whatever decision I make is what's best for the team. There can never be a personal decision, because then I must get out of the game. There can never be a sentimental decision, because then I must get out of the game. I make a perfect example. Jessica Williams comes from the club that I used to play for many years ago. And in 2019, she was the third goalkeeper at the start because Roxanne had retired. By the time World Cup came along, Jessica wasn't the third goalkeeper anymore, based on a football decision more than anything else. So you can never make that decision and never validate anything, because it's not about validation. It's about the facts. It's about the stats. It's about what the player offers. It's about what's good for the team. To be honest, I don't know how Kaylin got through it. But I do know that her teammates told her to get off social media. Probably the most trying time, and it didn't matter what Kaylin did, she got slaughtered all over social media. I remember Jermaine going on Robert Marawa and talking about the last 16. And one of the things Jermaine said was, if it wasn't for Kaylin, I wouldn't be sitting here now. That save she made. That save she made, but now we don't remember the save, we remember the mistake. That's all we remember, and we remember the mistakes of everybody. Football is not a perfect game. No sport is a perfect game. There is going to be mistakes along the way. There's going to be a lot of mistakes along the way. And that's what sport is about. It's mistakes. You rectify the mistakes, or you try not to make it again, or you try to limit your mistakes. But there's no perfect game. But what Jermaine said was true, and that goes for every player. You know, that goes for every player. We don't just sit and put the lineup together. We look at the opposition. We look at the lineup. We say to ourselves, if we change, do we have the players? Is this player going to give us more in that position than that player? People used to say, but why is Leandra playing centre midfield at the WAFCON? Leandra was one of our better players in 2018, even though she was a winger. We felt what she brought to the team there, and then all of a sudden it was a masterstroke. We played Wendy as a left back against DR Congo. We didn't have anyone else. And we needed somebody that was physical, that was a left footer. And then what a masterstroke. So we do things that we feel is best for the team, and sometimes it might work, and then it's not a masterstroke, and sometimes it will work, and then it's a masterstroke, because player can be magnificent the whole week in training. When they step onto that field and they play in that game, they might not be doing what the crowd wants them to do, and it's not on us, because the player has performed the whole week. So when a player said that I have not been given a chance, your chance starts at training. So if you are training well and I'm not training well, how can I expect to play above you?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. It starts at training, where you show the coach, this is what I'm capable of doing. That's how you get to start. And unfortunately, you can't start everyone. But honestly, I don't know how Kaylin got through that.
Sure. Coach, I wish I had 3 hours. But Coach, I wanna leave one last question with you. You've won everything now. CAF, Coach of the Year, everything, Coach, under the sun now. After this, what's next in terms of what else do you want to achieve?
Defend the title.
The AFCON.
Back to back. It's going to be difficult because the way the game has evolved on the African continent, you see it. You see countries, the players going abroad, signing for big teams. You see the national team of Morocco, they had 2 professional tier leagues. You see the difference that has done for their football. You see Zambia, you see the youth programs of Zambia coming through. You see Malawi, how their team has grown. You look at DR Congo, they've got a player playing at PSG. We would not have thought that in the wildest imagination. You see TP Mazembe of DR Congo winning the CAF Champions League.
Yeah.
You know, winning it. Whereas you would have expected maybe AS FAR or Mamelodi Sundowns to be of the favourites. So the game has changed, the game has evolved, but we still have the players. We still have the players that we can go and defend, and that would be big, because the only country that has done it, and not done it once, done it on numerous occasions, is Nigeria. So that would be the icing on the cake for everything, winning it back to back.
If you had one word, and I want one word, Coach, one word to describe your journey as a player, as a coach, just as Desiree, who's now 62 years old, in football, what would that word be?
Blessed.
And Coach, we've been blessed to have you, so thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. But there's more. There's more.
Hey.
Because you know, here Hollywood is far more. Everything is more. Okay, Coach, so little game, it's called tactical board, right? So I'm going to give you defenders, midfielders, strikers, goalkeepers. If you had a choice, you're building your dream team, right? It's not exactly a 11, but I'm going to give you goalkeepers, defender, midfielder, and a striker. So you must choose one from the names I give you. Oops. And it's not the ones you think.
Okay.
Okay, goalkeepers. One choice, Nelisiwe Cele, Bridget Molale, Delisile Mbata, Estridge, formerly February, now it's Van Kesteren, yeah. Choose one.
I'd probably go with Astrid. I played with her at club level, went from a defender to a goalkeeper. So I'd probably choose Astrid.
She's your fighter at the back?
She's my fighter at the back.
Okay, and then your defenders. 1, Martha Malaku. Maud Kumalo. Sibongile Kumalo.
Definitely Sibongile Kumalo.
Oh, okay.
There's no two. The others were fantastic, but for me, definitely her top defender.
If you need someone to scope, it's Sibongile. Okay, Sibongile will do the scoping. Okay, midfielders. Makosi Lutuli. Hilda Likalakala. Mpumi Nyandeni.
I never played with Mpumi. I would go with Hilda Lakalakala. Mpumi was a top talent, but more of an attacker. But Hilda Lakalakala had probably the sweetest left foot in the midfield that I know of.
The strikers.
Hey.
Joanne Solomons. Veronica Pewa, Portia Modise.
Oh.
Who are your fighters up front?
You know, they all had qualities. I think Veronica Pewa, the best left footer I played with and against. Joanne Solomon, probably the best out-and-out goal scorer. Portia Modise as a 14-year-old, oh my God, she was something else. But for me, as a striker, I would put my life on Joanne. We would give Joanne the ball, and we would just stand and watch, and Joanne would go and score. That's how good Joanne was.
So Astrid at the back, Sibongile to assist. Midfield, you said Hilda.
Yeah.
And you said Joanne.
Joanne.
Those are your fighters.
Those are my fighters.
And who coaches this team?
Me, of course. Who else? I've chosen the players. Who else?
Okay, who's your assistant? Who's your assistant coach?
Tina Sonkimbule.
Why not someone else? I mean, I'm not even shocked that you chose Coach Tina.
You guys don't know how knowledgeable she is.
Yes, she truly is.
How her knowledge of women's football is tremendous.
Yeah.
And one of the top coaches on the continent.
Okay, Coach. I mean, we could go on and on and on, because the one thing is that you have such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the football. And I mean, we are not in the business of giving people their flowers when they're long gone. But, you know, being able to have you sit here, speak your truth on your terms, in your own way, and give you your flowers. This is what we want to do. Celebrate you, because you deserve it, Coach. You've done the unthinkable, and we don't doubt that there's still more to come. So we need you to come back with AFCON.
By God's grace, there's definitely more to come.
Of course. We need you to come back with it, because you said you want to defend it, and it's this year.
It's this year.
It's this year, Coach. Are we doing it?
Around the corner.
Are we doing it?
It's around the corner.
Are we doing it, Coach?
That is our aim. That is our aim. But I think it's the aim for every country.
Yes.
But as defending champions, it would just put this group of players on a different level.
I need you to say, we are doing
it. We want to do it.
Coach, where can people follow you? Where can people catch you? Where can people just, if they're obsessed with Coach Des, where can they follow you?
Well, I'm not on X so much. I'm on Insta. And I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm not so much on X. I just post so now and then.
Okay. Coach, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hollywoodbets YouTube channel. It's been so great. It is the Far More for the Fans podcast. I'm Mbali Sigidi. I'm so sad to cut it, but Coach, thank you so much. We'll see you next time, guys. Cheers, bye.